2 Chronicles 6 in Hebrew translated. Azaha mar Shlomo. Then Shlomo spake, Yahweh amar lishakon ba'arafel. Yahweh hath said, to dwell in thick darkness. Wahani baniti bet zebul lach. But I have built a house, an exalted house for thee. Umakona lithivitaka l'olamim, and a dwelling for thy dwelling forever. Wayaseb hamelech et panau. And the king turned his face, Wayavarach at the kol kahala Yisrael, and he blessed all the congregation of Yisrael. Kol kahala Yisrael omed, and all the congregation or assembly of Yisrael was standing. Wayomer Baruch Yahweh Elohe Yisrael, atar dibber bepiu at the David Havi. And he said, Blessed be Yahweh, the God of Yisrael, which hath spoken by his mouth with David my father, and by his hands he has fulfilled, saying, Min hayom atrahosheti et amim mehersh Mithraim, lo baharati be'er mekol shivat Yisrael, libanot bayit, lihyot shmish tham, وَلَوْ بَحَرْتِي بَهِيشَ لِهِيوتَ نَاغِيد عَلَى عَمِّي Yisrael. From the day which I brought my people from the land of Mithraim, Egypt, I have not chosen in a city from all the tribes of Israel to build a house to dwell my name there, for my name to dwell there. And I have not chosen in a man to be a prince over my people Israel. And I have chosen in Jerusalem for my name to be there. And I have chosen in David to be over my people Israel. And it was with the heart of David my father to build a house to the name of Yahweh, the God of Yisrael. Yomer Yahweh el David haviu. Yagan ataraha ya'im lebabeka libanot bayit lishami het ivota ki ha ya'im lebabeka. And Yahweh said to David my father, because of which it was with thy heart to build a house to my name, thou hast done well that it was with thy heart. But only thou shalt not build the house. For thy son, the one coming forth from thy loins, he shall build the house to my name. ويقم يهوه את דברו אשר דיבר והקום תחת דוד אבי وهيثبت على كسي يشرائيل كاتر دبر يهوه وهبنا هبيت الشم يهوه Elohe Yisrael. And Yahweh hath established his word which he spoke, and I have arisen in the place of David my father, and I dwell on the throne of Yisrael, like which Yahweh spoke, and I have built a house to the name of Yahweh the God of Yisrael. Wahashim Tham et Haharon, and I have set there the ark at the Retham Berit Yahweh, which the covenant of Yahweh is there, at the Rekarat Im Bnei Yisrael, which he cut with the sons of Yisrael. Wayamod lifnei midbah Yahweh, neged kol kahala Yisrael, wayifrosh kapayu. And he stood before the altar of Yahweh, before all the assembly of Yisrael, and he spread his hands. Ki asha shalomo ki yoren hoshet wa yitnehu betok ha'azara chamesh hamot orka wa chamesh hamot rohbo وهموت ثالوث قوماتو. For Shlomo had made a platform of bronze, and he set it in the midst of the court, 5 cubits its length and 5 cubits its breadth, and 3 cubits its height. ويعمد عليه ويبرك على بركايو نجد كل قهل إسرائيل ويفروش كبايو هشامايمه. And he stood upon it, and he knelt on his knees before all the assembly of Israel, and he spread out his hands toward heaven, toward the skies. ויאמר יהוה אלוהי ישראל, אין כמוך אלוהים בשמיים ובארץ, שומר הברית והחסד לעבדיך, ההולכים לפניך בכל ליבם. And Yahweh the God of Yisrael, and he said, Yahweh the God of Yisrael, there is not like thee, a God in the skies and in the earth, keeping the covenant and the loving kindness to thy servant, the ones walking before thee with all the heart. And that's what we must do, people. At the Rationale le'abdika David ha'abi, at the Redibarta law, which hath kept for his servant David my father, the which thou hast spoken for him. What tadabber b'pika ubeyadaka milleta kayom hadha, and thou hast worded with thy mouth, and with thy hand thou hast fulfilled like this day. Wa'ata Yahweh Elohe Yisrael shemora le'abdika David habi at the dibarta lo lehmor lo yikaret leka ish milpanai yoteb ala kisse Yisrael rak im yishmeru vanuka et darkam la leket betorati katerha lakta lepanai. And now, Yahweh, God of Israel, keep for thy servant David, my father, the which thou hast spoken for him to him, saying, not shall be cut off for thee a man from before me, before my face, a dweller on the throne of Israel. If only thy son shall keep thy ways, to walk in my Torah, my law, like which thou hast walked before me. Wa'ata Yahweh Elohe Yisrael yehamen devareka atradibarta l'abdeka l'David. And now Yahweh Elohe, Yahweh the God of Israel, let be firm thy word which thou hast worded to thy servant to David. Ki ha'umnam yethebe Elohim et ha'adama ala ha'arech. For is it truly that God shall dwell with man upon the earth? Hinne sha'maim u'shemeh ha'sha'maim lo yikalakaluka. Behold, the skies and the skies of the skies cannot contain thee. Afaki habayit hadha athrabaniti. And how much more, or how much less, this house which I have built? وفانيتا تفيل إلا تفيلت عبدك وإلا تحناتو يهوه لوهاي لشمور إلا هالرنا وإلا هتفيل لا أتر عبدك متبالل لفانك. And turn thou to the prayer of thy servant and to his supplication, Yahweh my God, to keep, to hear, to the cry and to the prayer which thy servant is praying before thee. Lihyot einaka petuhot hele habayt hadad yomama walayla elahama qoma atraha marta la shuma shimaka thama lishmo elahat fillah tarayit pallel abdaka elahama qoma hadad. For thy eyes being open to this house day and night, to the place which thou hast said to set thy name there, to hear to the prayer which thy servant prayeth to this place. وشامعت إلى تحنون عبدك وعمك Yisrael. And thou shalt hear to the supplication of thy servant and thy people Yisrael atar yitapallalo elahamakom hadha, which they pray to this place. وحتى تسمع من مقوم ثبتك من هالشامين وشامعت وصالحت. And thou shalt hear from the place of thy dwelling, from the skies, and thou shalt hear and thou shalt forgive. إما يحتاهيش لرعه وناشاه Allah لهالوطو. If a man sin against his neighbor and shall be lifted upon him an oath for his cursing, for his oath, or for his swearing, and the oath come before thy altar in this house. وحتى تسمع من هالشامين وعاشيتا وشافتا عبادك ولهاثيب الراشع لا تتدركو بالرشو ولهالصديق الصديق لا تتلو كصدقاتو. And thou, hear thou from the skies, and effectuate thou, and judge thou thy servants to return to the wicked, to give his way upon his head, and to justify the righteous, to give for him according to his righteousness. وإما يناقف عمك يشرائيل لفني أويب كي يحته لاك وثابوا وهودوا الشماكا ويتبللوا ويتحننوا لفانكا ببيت هذا. And if thy people are struck, thy people Yisrael, before the enemy, before an enemy, for they have sinned against thee, and they turn and they give glory to thy name, and they pray and they make supplication to thy face in this place. وحتى تسمع من هالشامين وصالحت لحتى عمك Yisrael, and thou hear from the sky and forgive the sin of thy people Yisrael. وحثيبو تام هذا ما أترنا تتلاهم واللهبوتهم, and return them to the land which thou hast given to them and to their fathers. وبهي عاثر هالشامين ولو يهي مطار كي يحته لاك, in the withstraining of the sky, and there is no rain, for they have sinned against thee. ويتبللوا إلى هماقوم هذا وهودو إلى الشماكا ما حتى طام يثوبون كي تغنم. And they pray to this place, and they give glory to thy name. From their sins they turn, for thou hast humbled them. وحتى تسمع هالشامين وصالحت لحتى عبادك وعمك يشرائيل كي تورم إلى هالدرك هالطوبا أتريلك وبا وناتت ما تار على أرشك أترناتت لعمك لنحلا. And thou, hear thou in the skies, and forgive for the sin of thy servants and thy people Yisrael, for thou shalt teach to the way, the good way, which thou shalt walk in it, and thou shalt give rain to thy land, which thou hast given to thy people for an inheritance. Rahab ki yihye vaharsh, dever ki yihye shiddafon v'yiraqon, arba وحاسيل كي يهيه كي ياثر لو يبايو بهرش ثغارايو كل نقع وكل محلا. Famine as it be in the land, pestilence, for there is blasting and mildew, locust or caterpillar, as it be, as their enemies besiege them in the land of their gates, every plague, every sickness. كل تفلا كل تحنا أترجيال لكل هادامة ولكل عمك إسرائيل. Every prayer and every supplication which shall be for all the man and for all thy people Israel. Atara yeda'o ishan niga o wamakaho bo waparash kapai wa ela habayit hadher. Which they know, every man his affliction and his sorrow, and he spread his hand to this house. وَأَتَّى تِشْمَعْ مِنَ هَشَّامَيْمْ مِكُونَ ثِبْتَكَ وَصَالَحَتَ وَنَاثَتَ لَهِيشَ كُكُلْ دَرَاكَيْوْ أَتَرَتَيْدَ أَتْ لَبَابُ كِي هَتَّى لَبَدَّكَ يا دعتا et lebab b'nei ha'adam. And thou hear from the sky the dwelling place of thy dwelling, and thou shalt forgive, and thou shalt give to the man according to his ways, which thou knowest his heart. For thou alone knowest the hearts of the sons of Adam. למען יראוך ללכת בדרכך כל הימים אתרהם חיים על פני האדמה. For the sake that they might fear to walk in thy ways, they might fear thee to walk in thy ways all the days which they are living upon the face of the ground, which thou hast given to our fathers. וגם אל הנוכרי אתר מעמך ישראל הוא. And also for the foreigner which is not from thy people Israel. ובא מהרש רחוק למען שמך הגדול וידך החזקה וזרועך הנטויה. And the foreigner come from a far land for the sake of thy name, thy great name, and thy strong arm, thy strong hand, and thy outstretched arm. وَذَاهُ وَهِتَّپَلَّلُوا إِلَى هَبَّيْتَ هَذَا. And they come and they pray to this house. وَحَتَّى تِشْمَعْ مِنْ هَشَّامَيْمْ مِنْ مَكَانَ ثِبْتَكَ وَعَشِيتَكَ كُلَّ أَتَرْ يَقْرَهِ لَكَ هَنُّخْرِي لَمَعَنَ يَدْعُ كُلَّ عَمِّ هَارْ את שמך וליראה אותך כעמך ישראל ולדעת כי שמך נקרא על הבית הזה אתר בנית. And thou shalt hear from heaven the dwelling of thy dwelling place, and thou shalt effectuate like all which he called to thee, the foreigner, all which the foreigner called to thee, for the sake that they may know, all the peoples of the earth may know thy name, and to fear thee like thy people Israel, and to know thy name that is called upon this house which I have built. כי יש עמך למלחמה על האויבים בדרך אשר תשלחם. As thy people go out to war against their enemy in the way which thou sendest them. وَهِتَّپَلَّلُوا هِلَكَ دَرَكَ حَائِرَ هَذُوتَ أَتَرْ بَحَرْتَ بَاهِ وَحَبَّيْتَ أَتَرْ بَانِيتَ لِشْمَكَ. And they pray to you in the way of the city, this city which thou hast chosen it, and the house which I have built for thy name. وَشَامَعْتَ مِنَ هَشَّامَيْمْ تفلاتام وَإِتَتِحِنَّاتام وَعَشِيتَ مِثْپَاتام. And thou shalt hear from the skies their prayer and their supplication, and thou shalt effectuate their judgment, their cause. כי יחטאו לך כי הן האדם אתר לא יחטא והנפת Bam, wana thata unathatam lifnei oyev, washavum shovehem elerish rahoka o korova. If they sin against thee, for there is not a man which does not sin, and thou art angry with them, and thou give them before an enemy, and they exile them, their exiles, to a land far or near. Wehetibu elalabavam, and they turn to their hearts. Baharish atar nishabutham, in the land where they are exiled there. Withavu wehita hananu he lurka beherish shivayam. And they turn and they make supplication to thee in the land of their captivity, Le'emor, saying, Hatanu hewinu warasha'anu, saying, we have sinned, we have done perversely, we have been wicked. Washavu, wathavu he lurka bekola libama, ubekola nafashama, be'erech shivayam, atarashavu otam. And they turn to thee in all their heart and in all their soul in the land of their captivity, which they are exiled there. Wihitapalalu daraka arasham, and they pray the way of their land, atarnatata lahavotam, which thou hast given to their fathers. Waha'ira ataraba harata, walabayt atarabanita lishamerka, and the city which thou hast chosen, and to the house which thou built for thy name. Washama'ata min hashamayim min makon shivaterka, min tefillatam wa etatihinno tehem wa ashita mithpatam wa salahta la'ammika atarashatahu lak. And thou shalt hear from the sky, from the dwelling of thy dwelling, their prayer and their supplication, and thou shalt effectuate their judgment, and thou shalt forgive for thy people which they have sinned against thee. Atta Elohai Yihyuna Enerka Petuhot Walthanerka Kashuvot Litafilat Hamakoma. Now, my God, let be now thy eyes open and thy ears attentive to the prayer of this place. Wa'ata kuma Yahweh Elohim Lenuherka, and now arise, Yahweh God, to thy resting place. Ata Waharon Ozerka, thou and the ark of thy strength, Kohanerka, Yahweh Elohim Yilabeshu Teshu'a, Wahasiderka Yishmechu Batov. Thy priests, Yahweh God, let them be clothed with salvation, and thy holy ones, let them rejoice in the good. Yahweh Elohim, halata thevapene meshiherka. Dhokara lehasade David avderka. Yahweh God, do not turn away the face of thine anointed, thy Mashiach. Remember thou to the loving kindness of David, thy servant. And here endeth chapter 6 in Hebrew of 2 Chronicles. Thank you for listening. Yahweh bless you as you take heed.